The Galactic Medical Station Helix drifted silently in orbit around Era 9, a giant planet cloaked in deep shades of crimson and orange. A symbol of intergalactic unity, Helix was a haven where medical professionals from various species collaborated, each contributing unique healing methods and advanced technologies to aid those in need. Its sleek, silvery structure arched elegantly, catching the warm, fiery reflections from the planet below. Inside the station's bustling corridors, engineers tended to life support systems, scientists advanced their research, and medics administered care to patients from across the galaxy. In one of the medical wings, Nurse Zara, an Athra, was wrapping up her rounds. Her species was famed for their deep empathy and exceptional knowledge of biochemistry. Her skin glowed with a soft, translucent blue, shimmering gently under the cool lighting of the station. Gravity seemed almost optional in her low-G surroundings, allowing her long, silvery hair to flow gracefully behind her, adding to her otherworldly appearance. Her hands, with their long and agile fingers, were perfectly suited for the intricate work she was known for. She wore a streamlined silver uniform adorned with pulsing green patterns that synced with her biorhythms, a trait unique to Athra biology. Zara had just completed a challenging operation on a Tran patient when her wrist communicator blinked with an urgent alert. She glanced at the message, her luminous eyes narrowing. A human male, badly injured in a space collision, was en route. His escape pod had struck debris during a hyperjump, leaving him with multiple fractures and internal bleeding. Zara braced herself for the intensive care ahead. She knew human endurance was remarkable, but the injuries sounded grave. A soft hiss signaled the opening of the medical bay doors as the emergency team entered, transporting the human on an anti-gravity stretcher. Zara quickly approached, her mind working swiftly as she evaluated his condition. The man, Alex, seemed to be in his late 20s, with close-cropped brown hair, a rugged face, and a physique that suggested a life of rigorous training. His breathing was labored, his face contorted in pain as they moved him onto a treatment bed, which floated gently above the floor. Zara adjusted the bed settings, activating a stabilization field that enveloped Alex's injured body, securing him without direct restraint. The bay was a medley of activity, staffed with alien and human nurses, each from diverse backgrounds yet moving in seamless coordination. Monitors beeped steadily, and advanced medical scanners hummed softly, providing a constant rhythm to their work. Zara initiated a detailed scan using a holographic display that hovered above Alex, revealing the extent of his injuries: fractured ribs, a punctured lung, severe bruising along his spine, and internal bleeding in his abdomen. Time was running against them. Zara's pulse quickened as she absorbed the severity of Alex's injuries. Though her rigorous training usually kept her calm, this case was pushing her limits. "Prepare a dose of Resitran 7, she instructed one of the other nurses, her voice carrying the melodic resonance typical of Athrans. Resitran 7, a potent Athran analgesic, could effectively numb the entire nervous system, allowing for swift cellular healing. It had been successful across species, including humans, and Zara had administered it numerous times without issue. Yet as the nurse handed her the injector, she paused briefly, an inexplicable sense of apprehension settling in her chest. She dismissed the feeling and pressed the device to Alex's neck, releasing the drug directly into his bloodstream. The effects were almost immediate. His breathing steadied, his features softened, and the tightness of pain dissipated. The monitors confirmed a decrease in stress, and the medical AI's calm voice verified patient response within normal range. Proceed with treatment. With the pain managed, Zara moved quickly, guiding a network of nanoprobes into Alex's chest using her bioluminescent hands. The nanoprobes went to work, repairing the bleeding and weaving a synthetic mesh to stabilize his fractured ribs. As she continued, Zara couldn't help but reflect on how delicate human bodies were compared to her own species. Athrans could regenerate lost limbs and endure harsh conditions. Humans, by comparison, were fragile, yet their sheer will to survive was remarkable. Minutes ticked by, and the room's tension began to ease. Alex's vitals stabilized, showing promising signs of recovery. Zara finally allowed herself a quiet sigh of relief, stepping back to review the data on his heart rate and neural activity. But then, without warning, his heart rate began to rise, subtly at first, then accelerating. His skin, initially pale from shock, flushed with a deep red, as though his body temperature was spiking rapidly. Alarmed, Zara adjusted the bed scanners, calling up a real-time analysis of his nervous system. Signals fired rapidly across his brain and spine, far exceeding normal levels. "This is odd. He should be in a state of deep relaxation," Zara murmured, her fingers darting over the controls as she recalibrated the sensors to capture the abnormal readings. The other nurses glanced at each other, uncertain. One of them, a translucent-skinned Cormi, stepped closer to the display. Could he be reacting poorly to the painkiller? Cellular? She asked, her tone filled with hesitation. Zara nodded slowly, though the notion unsettled her. It's possible, but I've never seen a human respond like this. Resitran 7 should have put him into a near-comatose state to support cellular regeneration, Zara murmured, her eyes narrowing in concern. Alex's breathing had turned erratic, and his body shivered despite the warmth from the stabilization field surrounding him. A sheen of sweat covered his forehead, and his pupils were dilated, as if he were seeing something invisible to everyone else. Increase the cooling in the stabilization field, Zara instructed, hoping to bring down his rising temperature. However, the slightest adjustment seemed to set off muscle spasms, making his limbs twitch involuntarily. Gently, she placed her cool, glowing hand on his arm to calm him, but the moment they connected, his body jolted, and a strained gasp escaped his lips. Zara drew her hand back, startled by the unexpected surge of energy between them. She quickly searched her memory for any similar cases in the medical database, but nothing matched. Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to refocus. Alex's life depended on her steady hands and clear mind. She activated the communication link to the station's central medical AI, its digital voice filling the room. AI, conduct a full analysis of the patient's response to Resitran 7, cross-referencing all known cases involving human physiology. The AI's tone was steady and clinical, yet it did little to ease her concern. Analysis in progress. No records of similar reactions in human patients. Nervous system displays heightened synaptic activity and irregular autonomic responses. Cause undetermined. Additional data required. Zara's frustration mounted as she tried to interpret the unknown cause behind Alex's symptoms. His body remained tense, seemingly fighting an invisible battle within itself. This was far from an ordinary reaction. It was unlike anything she had encountered. For the first time, a thought began to take shape in her mind. Was this a unique reaction to the drug, or did it reveal something about human biology that remained a mystery? She moved closer to the bed, her hands hovering above the control panel as she pondered her next step. The other nurses watched her closely, awaiting guidance, but Zara felt an unfamiliar emotion bubbling within doubt. Alex was no longer just another patient. He had become a puzzle, a complex mystery that challenged everything she thought she knew about human physiology. In a fleeting moment, she wondered if she had acted too quickly with the Resitran 7, placing too much faith in its adaptability. Perhaps her confidence in its universal effectiveness had blinded her to the specific risks it might carry. Yet, turning back was not an option now. She needed to stabilize Alex, even if that meant navigating the unknown. And as she prepared for the next steps, her mind was already racing with potential theories and the sobering implications they could hold for human-alien medical treatment. The low hum of the Galactic medical station helix filled the sterile air, blending seamlessly with the rhythmic beeps of monitors tracking Alex's fluctuating vitals. Zara's mind raced, her focus locked on the floating holographic screen as she sifted through the patient's chaotic data. Just as he'd seemed to stabilize, Alex's condition had spiraled back into instability, a surge of erratic neural activity, his heart rate spiking dangerously, his skin glowing an unnatural feverish red as heat radiated from him, overwhelming the station's cooling system. A wave of frustration washed over her, and she clenched her jaw, wrestling with the puzzle before her. Around her, the other medical personnel exchanged hushed words, their concern unmistakable. Vel, her Cormi colleague with a semi-translucent, pearly skin that faintly glowed with worry, cast a questioning look at Zara. What's our next move? His system is resisting the medication. Manual sedation might be necessary. Zara shook her head, her silvery hair flowing softly with the motion. Manual sedation is too risky, could send his nervous system into shock. We need to understand why his body is reacting like this first. Her glowing blue fingers moved deftly across the console as she activated advanced diagnostic scans to probe deeper into Alex's physiology. The holographic display widened, revealing the complex web of neural signals firing erratically within his brain. With each minute, Zara's concern deepened. The readings shifted wildly, showing a battle between two states, the calm induced by the Resitran and a surge of heightened sensory responses. It was a medical contradiction she'd never encountered. The AI's report had yielded no insights, and the data only led to more questions. Sensing her unease, Vel stepped closer and placed a reassuring hand on Zara's shoulder, her touch cool and grounding. Zara, you've faced more complex cases. Maybe it's a matter of finding the right balance. We could try a small dose of Nixolon to stabilize his neural pathways. Zara considered Vel's idea, though her instincts cautioned against it. Nixolon worked well for species with hyperactive nervous systems, but it had yet to be tested on humans. Adding another alien compound without fully understanding Alex's reaction could be disastrous. She needed clearer answers. She turned back to the console, initiating an in-depth scan of Alex's neurotransmitters and hormonal responses. As she worked, his body continued to spasm, his muscles reacting to unseen triggers. A soft groan escaped him, and his face twisted in discomfort. Zara's heart tightened at the sight. Despite her extensive training, she couldn't ignore the pang of empathy she felt for this human caught in such inexplicable distress. He was relying on her expertise, and the weight of that responsibility settled heavily on her. As the scan progressed, a unique pattern emerged on the screen. Zara leaned in, her eyes narrowing as she studied the data. A surge of adrenaline pulsed through Alex's veins, overriding the numbing effects of the painkiller. It was as though his body was locked into survival mode, instinctively bracing for a threat even though he couldn't move. "How is this happening?" Zara murmured, her thoughts racing through potential explanations. She quickly tapped into the medical archives, searching for any documented cases of similar responses in humans or related species, but the database yielded nothing helpful. Her frustration grew as she sifted through medical texts, unable to find any reference to what she was seeing. Watching her struggle, Vel spoke up, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "Maybe we're missing something obvious. Humans are known for their adaptability to unfamiliar conditions. Could his body be perceiving the medication as a foreign invader?" Zara considered Vel's suggestion. It was a stretch, but it made a certain amount of sense. Human physiology was notoriously adaptable, and their nervous systems could react to extreme stress in unpredictable ways. Perhaps Alex's body was viewing the alien medication as a threat rather than a cure. Yet, even if this were the case, it didn't explain the erratic patterns in his neural activity. "Let's try recalibrating the stabilization field to align with his natural biorhythms," Zara suggested, deciding to act on her hunch. "If we sync it with his heart rate and neural frequencies, it might ease his system down." She adjusted the settings on the control panel, fine-tuning the field to harmonize with Alex's vital signs. But as soon as she activated it, Alex's body reacted violently. His muscles seized, his back arched, and his breathing became ragged. Alarms blared, piercing the air with a shrill, urgent sound that sent a chill through Zara. With trembling hands, she quickly deactivated the field. "It's not working," she said, gritting her teeth. Alex's condition was worsening, and the weight of her inability to help him was sinking in. She had never encountered a patient so resistant to treatment. Yet beneath the frustration, a fierce resolve took hold. She couldn't let this young human slip through her fingers. Turning to Vel and the other nurses, she spoke with renewed focus. "We need to try something unconventional. Vel, prepare a blood sample and a cerebral fluid extraction. I need to analyze them manually to get a closer look." Vel nodded and quickly set up the equipment. Within minutes, samples of Alex's blood and cerebral fluid were laid out on the lab station, illuminated under the sterile glow of the lab's lighting. Zara leaned in, using a precision scanner to deconstruct their molecular makeup. As she delved into the analysis, a startling anomaly surfaced. The Resitran 7 had bonded with a protein in Alex's bloodstream, forming a unique compound that defied her understanding of biochemistry. This new substance was acting as a neural stimulant, intensifying the signals firing between Alex's synapses rather than suppressing them. Her eyes widened as she grasped the implications. The painkiller isn't dampening his senses, it's heightening them. His body is processing the drug in an entirely unexpected way. That's why his heart rate is through the roof, and why even the smallest sensation is setting him off. Vel peered over Zara's shoulder, her translucent face mirroring Zara's surprise. "But why would his body respond this way? It doesn't add up." Zara paused, sifting through her knowledge of human physiology. Humans are incredibly resilient, but they can also be sensitive to unfamiliar compounds. His immune system might be overreacting, seeing the drug as a threat and throwing his body into overdrive. She turned back to the medical console, bringing up the logs from Alex's recent mission. His report indicated he'd been conducting a survey in the Epsilon Quadrant, an area notorious for its chaotic cosmic anomalies. Perhaps his exposure to unknown radiation or elements had altered his physiology, increasing his sensitivity to the Resitran 7. The complexity of Alex's case struck her. This wasn't simply a drug reaction. It was a collision of biology, chemistry, and the unpredictable hazards of deep space. Now, Zara faced a difficult decision. She could try synthesizing a counter-serum to neutralize the Resitran 7's effects, but without fully understanding the risks, she might worsen his condition. She glanced at Alex's face, twisted in discomfort, and knew she couldn't delay any longer. His situation was deteriorating rapidly. Taking a steadying breath, Zara accessed the genetic synthesis lab, preparing a formula for the counter-serum. Her hands worked swiftly, but her heart pounded with the uncertainty of the unknown. unknown. She developed a blend of neurotransmitter stabilizers specific to human biology, combined with calming agents from her own species, a precise mixture that she hoped would soothe Alex's heightened senses without shutting down his nervous system. As she filled the syringe, Zara whispered a quiet prayer to her ancestors, seeking guidance as she faced the unknown. She approached Alex's bedside with the syringe in hand, pausing briefly under the weight of her decision. If the serum succeeded, it might stabilize him, giving his body time to recover. If it failed, the consequences could be catastrophic. But looking at Alex's pale, strained face, she realized there was no other choice. Administering counter serum, she announced, her voice steady even as uncertainty churned within her. She pressed the syringe to Alex's arm, injecting the pale blue liquid into his bloodstream and watching it disappear. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was thick with tension as the medical team held their breath, waiting. Zara kept her eyes on the monitors, observing the fluctuating lines tracking Alex's vital signs. Gradually, the readings shifted. His heart rate began to stabilize, his breathing eased, and the tension in his muscles relaxed. The flushed color faded from his skin, replaced by a more natural tone. Zara released a shaky breath, relief mingling with a sense of unease. This was just the beginning. The mystery of Alex's condition loomed larger than ever. The dim lights of Helix Station cast haunting shadows across the sleek surfaces of the medical bay, giving the room an ethereal, almost spectral glow. Her silvery hands gripped the edge of Alex's treatment bed as she watched the monitors, her gaze unwavering. His heart rate had evened out into a steady beat and the once chaotic spikes were gone. But despite the momentary calm, tension still lingered in the air like a storm waiting to unleash. She felt a rush of relief as she saw his body finally relax, sinking into the anti-gravity bed's supportive hold. The feverish flush that had stained his skin now cooled, his color returning to something resembling normal. She wiped a bead of sweat from her brow, feeling the chill of the bay's cool air against her skin. Vela, a Croatian nurse, approached with an awed expression, her face illuminated by an iridescent shimmer as she read the holographic display. "He's stabilizing, Zara. You did it," she said softly, though her voice held a note of wonder. "But why did this happen? How could a simple painkiller cause such a reaction?" Zara didn't answer immediately, her mind combing over the sequence of events. The abrupt reaction, the rushed counter serum, the relentless uncertainty. She looked at Vela, her expression serious. "It's not just about the painkiller. There's something unique about Alex's biology that's causing this interaction. It's unlike anything we've dealt with before." She leaned closer to the console, her fingers hovering as she triggered another in-depth scan of Alex's vitals. The station's medical AI spoke in its usual monotone precision. Patient's condition stabilized. Neural activity within normal range. Adrenaline levels decreasing. No anomalies detected. Zara's brow furrowed. The data was clear, but she sensed something beyond the numbers, a faint thread of complexity eluding explanation. Following her instincts, she accessed the mission logs from Alex's recent deep space expedition, searching for anything that could explain his reaction. As she scanned the report, her eyes landed on a line she'd previously overlooked. Asterisk exposure to Class X electromagnetic pulses during survey of the Zarath 9 asteroid field. Minimal radiation detected. No immediate harm reported among crew. Asterisk it was a seemingly minor detail, something likely dismissed at the time. But Zara's instincts flared. Class X pulses were notorious for their unusual biological effects, often amplifying subtle cellular changes that could remain dormant for days or even weeks. While humans were remarkably resilient, they weren't immune to deep space risks like these. "Vela, take a look at this," Zara said, pointing to the mission report. "Alex was exposed to electromagnetic pulses during his last mission. It's possible that this exposure somehow modified his body's sensitivity, especially toward substances like the Rizotrans 7. His nervous system might be hypersensitive right now." Vela leaned closer, her pearlescent skin catching the glow from the display. "Electromagnetic pulses altering a painkiller reaction? That seems like a stretch even with human adaptability. Are you sure?" Zara's mind whirled with the possibilities, grasping at any explanation. "I'm not certain of anything yet, but we have to consider every angle. If his body was already in an elevated state from the exposure, it might explain why the painkiller had such an intensified effect. It could have acted as a trigger, unleashing a cascade of reactions in his system." She looked down at Alex, his face now peaceful as he rested, the chaos in his body momentarily calmed. Even so, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only scratching the surface of a far deeper mystery. She reached out, gently brushing a damp lock of hair from his forehead, her touch careful, as if even the smallest disturbance could tip the fragile balance holding him steady. The medical bay's lights flickered briefly, a reminder of their position in orbit around a volatile gas giant. Zara took a deep breath, centering herself. They'd found a temporary solution, but that wouldn't be enough to secure Alex's recovery. She needed answers. Prepare the biosynthesis analyzer, she instructed Vela. I want to understand exactly how the Rizotrans 7 reacted with the proteins in his blood. If we can isolate the compound responsible, we might unravel its full effect. Vela nodded, moving swiftly to set up the analyzer. Meanwhile, Zara accessed the genetic database, cross-referencing interactions between Class X radiation and human DNA. The process was slow and meticulous, each bit of data weaving an ever-growing web before her. Gradually, a new theory began to form. The Rizotrans 7, when introduced to Alex's altered physiology, had bonded with certain proteins in his bloodstream, creating a compound that amplified neural transmissions. This new compound acted like a booster, heightening every signal within his nervous system. It explained the intense response, the flood of sensations, and the adrenaline surge. But it also hinted at something much larger, a revelation that made Zara's breath catch. Vela, Zara whispered, her voice filled with awe. If my theory is correct, Alex's body wasn't simply reacting to the drug. It was adapting. His nervous system was actively trying to integrate its effects, treating it as a new kind of stimulus. Vela's eyes widened, her translucent glow dimming in shock. You mean his body was trying to use the compound to enhance itself? That's unprecedented. Humans don't have that kind of adaptive capacity, do they? Vela asked, her voice laced with disbelief. Zara shook her head, her mind racing with the implications. Not typically, no. But if those Class X pulses altered his DNA, even slightly, they might have unlocked a dormant potential, something entirely unprecedented. It's almost as if his body was trying to evolve, repurposing the painkiller into something useful. The realization hit her hard, and she felt her knees weaken. Steadying herself against the workstation, she grappled with the enormity of the discovery. This could revolutionize everything they knew about human biology, about the limits of adaptability and survival. It might even offer insight into new forms of life throughout the galaxy. Yet with this revelation came a sobering thought. If Alex's body was transforming, adapting to foreign compounds, then the stakes were far higher than they had anticipated. His recovery wasn't merely about stabilization anymore. It was about navigating a new form of biology, one that could be as dangerous as it was groundbreaking. Turning her gaze to Alex's resting form, Zara felt a surge of determination rise within her, fierce and unyielding. Here was a young human, caught in the web of cosmic forces beyond his control, harboring a mystery that could reshape their understanding of life itself. And she would see him through this, no matter the cost. Zara straightened, her silvery hair cascading around her shoulders like a shimmering veil. Vela, keep a close eye on his vitals. I need to prepare a report for the medical board. They have to know what we've discovered, and they need to know now. This discovery, it's too important to keep under wraps. Vela nodded, her expression a blend of awe and caution. And what about Alex? If his condition changes again? Zara looked back at the monitors, her jaw set with determination. Then we'll adapt just as he has. We'll do everything in our power to keep him stable, to help his body navigate these changes. But we won't let him become an experiment. He's not just a test subject. In that moment, Zara knew that this was only the beginning of a journey into uncharted territory, one she was prepared to face head-on, alongside Alex. He's a person, and he deserves to be treated as such, Zara stated firmly. She activated the comm system, her voice steady as she reached out to the medical board. The holographic interface sprang to life, projecting the solemn faces of board members from across the galaxy, each a recognized authority in their respective fields. Medical Director Zara, you have urgent findings to report? Said a tall, stern-faced Nerian, his tone carrying a trace of impatience. Yes, Zara replied, meeting their gaze without hesitation. We've encountered a unique interaction between human physiology and alien compounds. This could revolutionize our understanding of adaptation and medical treatment in space. But we need your authorization for further research, and we need it now. As she recounted the past few hours' events, a profound sense of purpose took hold, reinforcing her conviction that they were on the cusp of a breakthrough. She knew that the path forward would be fraught with unknowns, challenges that were beyond imagining. Yet, turning back was no longer an option. She stole a glance at Alex, lying peacefully on the treatment bed. He had become more than just a patient. He was now a symbol of the unknown, a living testament to the mysteries of space waiting to be unraveled. The board members listened intently, their skepticism slowly giving way to intrigue. When she finished, they exchanged quick, muted words among themselves. Finally, the Nerian representative nodded. You have our authorization, Director. Proceed carefully and keep us informed at every step. This discovery could redefine the future of interspecies medicine. Zara inclined her head in acknowledgement, a quiet smile tugging at her lips as the holographic projection faded. She turned back to Vela and Alex, feeling a surge of determination. The journey ahead would be long, but for the first time, she felt a spark of hope, a belief that they could navigate this uncharted path together. And as the station drifted through the vast darkness of space, Zara knew that, whatever lay ahead, they stood at the edge of a discovery that could reshape life's future among the stars.